With this, Nana, you're welcome to the pause.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right. So, what is your problem with MPs and ministers being allowed to use siren in the conduct of the official business?
Well, very well. I think that we did say that our problem is not allowing MPs, ministers, and justices of the Supreme Court privileges on the road. Mm-hmm. Our problem is allowing them privileges within the context of best practices and within the context of our own road experience. Best practices the whole world over, okay? Their counterparts are going to work in buses and on bicycles, and sometimes some of them are walking. Number two, best practices across the whole world. Sirens, strobe lights, and exemptions from speed limits apply only to emergency services, i.e. law enforcement and medical emergency services and other emergency services. There is nowhere in the world that I have seen where it is grounded in law for such mass number of people to be exempted from speeding.
There are just 275 MPs.
And in excess of that,
and most of them are actually ministers as well.
275 plus 80 or up to 126 or more ministers, roping them into this. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. We live in a country where research is pointing to speeding as the number one causal factor for road crashes. So if we are going to amend our Road Act, we should be seeking to reduce or put in measures that's going to get people to reduce their speed and not to exempt people from speeding. So we were against this on three grounds of public safety, best practice, and the third aspect is the chaos that is going to bring on our roads. And I think that if indeed this has been withdrawn, it is okay. We are looking back to welcoming that amendment because there are some good things in there. We want to welcome that amendment back as soon as possible without the members of parliament, ministers of state, justices of the Supreme Court, the Speaker, and the Chief Justice. All of them should be expunged from there. The best practice across the world, whenever these guys need to attend to emergencies, is to call for police escort. And I think that is decent enough, and Ghanaians can actually accept that.
So the LI is now off the table. We don't know whether it will come back or it will come back in its original form. But our MPs and ministers need some kind of protection on the roads. So how do we guarantee them that?
Well, I don't know who said our MPs and ministers need some kind of protection. In the first place, everybody on that road needs protection. Mm-hmm. Okay? Secondly, and it is the job of the ministers and the MPs to work that protection to be intrinsic to our very system. Years back, for many, many years, people, ordinary persons going about their normal businesses, traveling to buy goods and stuff across the world, across the country, were being harassed by armed robbers. They were being killed by armed robbers. The state put in efforts that did not really yield so much until an MP was killed by armed robbers while he was in transit. May his soul rest in peace. And I don't really in any means try to belittle the life of an MP. But when he was killed, what did we see? Immediately, we had the House of Legislature ganging up together and assigning to themselves one policeman per MP for close body protection. You and I don't have that kind of close body protection, yet we wake up at dawn in order to beat the traffic to arrive at work and risk it all.
Because you and I have given them certain responsibilities, and I'm guessing that such responsibilities should go with some kind of privilege. Don't you agree with me on that score?
Giving them loans with whether flexible interest or interest-free loans to buy vehicles are some privileges that we are according them, isn't it? So we give them responsibilities and they have to work. We have given them what they need to work. We cannot grant further responsibility that seek to make them check out of the system. Because if the road is choked, it is their responsibility to make sure the road is cleared.
Right.
We cannot check them out of the road and then we will come and stay in the road. How do we pay our taxes? How do we take care for our families? So they need to experience the system in order to make it work for all of us so that we can continue to pay our taxes, get them sorted out, to also take care of their the responsibility that they need to take care of. The whole world over, people who need, important people in government who need access, quick access, fall on law enforcement agencies for police escorts.
I understand
that is what the Ghanaian must respect.
Thank you very much, Nana Akwada, for your intervention on this matter. You're clearly on the side of some of the Ghanaians who spoke on the streets of Accra. So, Murtala, you've heard Nana Akwada. You've heard those we interviewed. What is your position on this matter? Perhaps you have a reaction that we can deal with the substantive matter.
Well, first and foremost, very interesting submission. But I think that it would be important for me to state.
Absolutely.
One, I have never used a siren. You know, I've had the privilege to be a deputy minister of state before for 4 years. As a deputy minister of state, I never used a siren. Not once. Not even once. I have never used that. I used to travel. You know, as the Deputy Minister for Trade, I used to travel very often, particularly when we were working on expos around the world. And I was always using the ordinary place Ghanaians were using at the dismay of many, you know, passengers. Why I wasn't using the VIP. So I have always lived that. I never had a driver driving me as a Deputy Minister. Not a single driver was I assigned to drive me. It was a choice I took. I never had a police officer following me anywhere.
As a deputy minister?
Not even once. If anybody has any evidence, that person should show it. You know, as a deputy minister for 2 years, I was staying at Capra for 2 years. You know, so I took a decision. So I have every moral leg to talk on this matter. He made certain statements that are factually not accurate. He said the best practice globally is that MPs go to work through trains and buses. That is not true. Even in the United Kingdom, you find some MPs, few MPs, 1 or 2, who will sit in the train. That is not to say that I don't support the position they have taken. My position is that it is important this particular ally is withdrawn. So I'm on the same page with him. But on the matter of best practice, because he used that, he has a responsibility to inform, and it should be properly informed, you know, your viewing public. When he says that best practice is that all over the world, MPs go to work with buses, that is factually not accurate. MPs drive their cars to Parliament. Some use buses, some use trains. But that is where those things are very effective and efficient. And I agree with the point he made when he said, look, MPs should all work, politicians should work to ensure that we have these things being reliable, efficient, effective, so that everybody can use. Let me also state, the impression should not be created as if MPs don't pay taxes, because I hear this time and again. But I also want to state, I'm a politician, I'm not corrupt. I have never been, and I will never be. I have always stated it. As a deputy minister for 4 years, let someone come or even privately say that I've ever given Murtala 1 cedi for the purposes of executing a job. But the point I'm making is that we have agreed to democratize. And as part of the democratic principles, we have agreed to give MPs some extra responsibilities. Those responsibilities are supposed to be executed so that we account to the people based on how well we have executed those responsibilities. My point is, when it is abused, that is where I have a challenge. But I'm coming. The reason why this ally, and it's important I state this, I was not even aware of the ally. When I heard it, I was shocked. Why would you want to have an ally where you will give MPs and judges the right to use siren and other things? I guess the ally was seeking to put a fine on those who are not supposed to use the siren.
And are using it?
Yes, I'm in opposition. But I think that ministers of state, the president and the vice president, if they use it under some circumstances, it makes a lot of sense. You can have problems with the MPs, and I agree absolutely with judge, even some Supreme Court judges. Let's say, for example, a Supreme Court judge, considering the huge traffic we have, who is supposed to attend to a program, maybe attend to court and then he's late. That is not to justify this. I support the removal of the ally. But for us to stretch it, As if, no, nobody is supposed to. He is even saying that both the president, the vice president, and then the MPs and ministers, they should be withdrawn. Under some circumstances, you would find it extremely, difficult for ministers. But MPs removal, I support it. The removal of it by judges. But I think that we need to look at it.
Of course, we're going to chew more on this matter. But it's a member of parliament for Tamale Central, Murtala Muhammed. So Murtala, I mean, you have established the point. Now let's move forward. So, from what Koko Asante told us, our parliamentary correspondent, the original LI did not include members of parliament
and judges.
And judges. Yeah. So, at what point did that find expression in the LI?
Before I say that, I think that the gentleman you interviewed, the last person, he made a very fantastic point, which I agree absolutely with him, that, look, we can have the police who have the authority to use siren as and when the need for you as a minister of state or even a member of parliament to use the siren, you can look for. And for me, that has always been my position. Assuming that a minister was supposed to come for this program or a member of parliament to inform people, to help provide information for Ghanaians. And that same person is supposed to attend a program which he is supposed to execute as a politician. And he can look for the police just for him to be able to meet the time. Because we live in a country where, and I agree with him, that our traffic is, regulations and traffic itself is terrible.
Absolutely.
It's terrible. If you travel to Lagos, you'll be shocked. Sometimes within Lagos, 1 hour travel, you spend about 4 or 5 hours. So it seemed to be a problem. That is not to justify the use of the siren, because I agree it's been abused. It's been abused hugely. So if it is that, the ally, for me, in terms of the relaying it, the amendment should include taking them off, but providing the opportunity for them to use them as and when
it's necessary.
There's a good as and when it's necessary for you to use them. If you say it should be used by the ministers to the same way, I agree. But the president and the vice president, they certainly, because of safety, their security is very, very important. In this country, we saw what happened to President Kufuor.
Right.
At the junction, the Opebia. You remember?
Right. When a car ran
onto
his specific vehicle.
He was just lucky that the vehicle was bulletproof. Now, you can never tell. Look at what happened to Donald Trump. Yeah. So the president, the vice president, their security is our collective responsibility. So equally, ministers of states and members of parliament, their safety and security is our collective responsibility. But that is not to say that when certain privileges are extended to them, they should abuse. So a fantastic point that we can have it, there should be a process by which you can ask and provide justification why they should assist you to be able to meet certain, responsibilities with regards to the difficulties and time. But as to whether the speaker was aware
or not,
because I realized he said that, look, the workload of parliament are just enormous. The speaker is engaged in a lot of issues. Even we, who are members of parliament, sometimes you are part of a decision on the floor, and then people raise it until you have to go and check. Because a day you can have about 20, 30 issues you discuss. So imagine a day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, 3 weeks, months. So naturally you would have some of this difficulty. So if the speaker said he was unaware and that he has actually cross-checked and he was unaware, I think that he was saying it genuinely, of course, without trying to
make it look like
but once it is done on him and the information is provided, the speaker would agree. Because I remember on several occasions, this thing I'm not aware, but I'll check. When he checked, he says, look, I didn't know that this decision was. And again, if the laying was done, because the pre-laying is referred to an appropriate committee, let's say subsidiary and legislation, it's not everybody will be aware until it is laid
on the floor.
On the day that the thing may be laid, you may not even be in parliament. Sometimes when you see what happens in parliament, you find that empty seats, maybe people may be on committees. And that's why I raised the issue of quorum. Remember yesterday, I had to even ensure we aborted seats because I felt that government brings in their businesses. They can't be relying on those of us who have left our constituency, come there, and they are not there, for certain things to be done. So if a member of parliament wasn't there and something happened in parliament, it's most likely that maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, when you ask him, he or she may not remember such a thing. But
Murtala, clearly, if these new additions were done at the committee level, exactly.
No, you see,
perhaps they may have the chair of the subsidiary committee may have good justification for undertaking such an exercise. Let me just find out from you, as member of parliament first member of parliament for Nandong and a member of parliament Nantong.
Okay,
and then now member of parliament for Tamale Central.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the stress level on an MP and the challenges they go through that you may need some privilege as the provision of sirens and dispatch to help you navigate through some of these things?
Well, I think that, like I said, I agree that it's unjustified to have the sirens because people abuse them. Sometimes you are driving around 11 p.m. going home, and then you see someone using siren when the traffic is not used. I have seen that on several occasions. So it's been abused. But under some circumstances where you may need a siren, I've just told you, we suspended sitting, and we are supposed to start sitting at 3 o'clock.
Right.
And I needed to honor this invitation to help provide information for your viewing public and the Ghanaian populace. So I had to come. I drove myself to this place. So assuming that I need to be in Parliament by 3 o'clock, which I should be in chamber by 3 o'clock because we're supposed to come back to continue the sitting at 3. And I know that, okay, my presence in Parliament is equally important. Then I can seek for the police to be able to provide me with what? The
dispatch.
The dispatch, to be able to get there. And that was why I said the point he made for me, I absolutely agree with. But where people have them on their vehicles, abuse them.
That's
and I think
problem.
It is worrying to everybody. And I guess that has occasioned the anger of the public. But who are we?
But your own members, I mean, this morning I've heard some members of Parliament, Rosin Dafiameko, was in favor of this new provision. I've listened to others like Okujeto Ablaka, and then the minority caucus actually, there's a statement signed by the leader taken against it and actually demanding a withdrawal, which has been done already. Yeah. So even when something has been put together for their own benefits, you disagree.
Well, that is why it is Parliament. It is a house of debate, a house of issues. I mean, people would have reasons why they are against it. It's just like the car loan thing, you remember? Some people felt that it ought to have been taken off. Some people also felt that, look, considering the circumstances, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity to certain MPs. I think that the debate is important, but what is critical is that we are representing people. So at any point in time, we must take decisions based on what is largely acceptable by the public or by the people we represent. You may have justifiable reasons why you think that this thing should be there, but once the public says no, maybe perhaps if proper information, education was provided, or information was provided to the public, why the Subsidiary and Legislative Committee thought it wise to add MPs and judges, maybe perhaps the public would have been very appreciative. But once you don't do that, and you just did, I mean, it's to the occasion.
Perhaps we'll have another discussion to probe why everything about Parliament is met with resistance. There was the proposal to have a new chamber, resisted, it didn't take off. Now this particular one. Is it the case that MPs themselves are their own enemies, or Parliament as an institution has not done enough to project the work of MPs and protect them? So we'll have that discussion on that. But I'd like to thank you so much for coming, because you're rushing back to Parliament. Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Murtala Muhammed. Now we'll take a short break here on the Ponana Akwada. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.